live in interesting times. Today's stories. An Ethiopian Airlines CEO is deeply saddened by the crash that left no survivors.
To the families, friends and relatives.
Venezuela's Guaido to call for a national state of emergency.
Decretar estado de alarma nacional.
Thousands protest Russia's internet isolation. A UN envoy sees prospects for the South Sudan peace deal.
We too have concerns about the peace process.
Dozens have been injured as a turbulence hits a Turkish Airlines flight to New York. A 2020 hopeful Elizabeth Warren unveils her big tech breakup plan.
So my view is break those things apart and we will have a much more competitive, robust market.
Plus, an Egyptian zoo offers animals hot drinks during wintry weather. And Cameroonian villagers assess the damage done by stampeding elephants.
L'autre côté du mur.
Hello everyone, I'm Ace Ramirez, bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Ethiopian Airlines CEO Tewol Gabriel expresses his deepest sympathies and condolences after their Nairobi-bound Boeing 737 crashed minutes after takeoff from Addis Ababa, killing all 8 crew and 149 passengers on board.
We are deeply saddened again, and we express our deepest sympathies and condolences to the families, friends and relatives of our bereaved passengers. It is a brand new airplane with no technical remarks, flown by senior pilots, and there is no cause that we can attribute at this time. But as you know, it is international practice that international investigators, Ethiopian civil aviation investigators, and also from the aircraft manufacturer from the US, the NTCB will be participating in the investigation.
A Nairobi-bound Boeing 737 crashed minutes after an early morning takeoff from Addis Ababa Sunday, killing all 8 crew and 149 passengers on board, including tourists, business travelers, and at least one delegate to a UN meeting. Amid a global stream of condolences, many gathered in tears at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, or JKIA, as the victims' identities started to emerge. Slovak MP Anton Hrnko wrote on Facebook, and I quote, "It is with deep sorrow that I announce that my dear wife, Blanca, son Martin, and daughter Mikala died in the air disaster in Addis Ababa this morning. People from 35 countries and 1 UN passport holder were on board flight ET-302 when it plowed into a field 37 miles southeast of Addis Ababa on what the airline CEO Tewol Gabriel labeled as a very sad and tragic day. The carrier said the Boeing 737-800 MAX was brand new, delivered to state-owned Ethiopian Airways, Africa's largest, on November 15. The plane is the same type as the Indonesian Lion Air jet that crashed last October, 13 minutes after takeoff from Jakarta, killing all 189 people on board. Foreign governments said tourists, business people, doctors, and a Kenyan football official were among the dead. Also on board was at least one staff member of the UN Environment Program, meeting in Nairobi on Monday for an annual assembly of 4,700 heads of state, ministers, business leaders, senior UN officials, and civil society representatives. Adding more losses are feared, UNEP acting head Joyce Masuya said in a message to staff, and I quote, "As many of you have already heard, at least one of our colleagues is unaccounted for." Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido announces that he will ask the National Assembly to declare a national state of emergency in the country, following a crippling power outage and mounting protests.
Vamos a solicitar a la Asamblea el día de mañana, voy a solicitar a la Asamblea el día de mañana, decretar estado de alarma nacional. Esta catástrofe debemos atenderla de inmediato.
Venezuela's embattled President Nicolas Maduro grappled Sunday with a crippling power outage and mounting protests as a top White House aide said members of the country's military were talking about possibly shifting allegiance to the opposition. Opposition leader Juan Guaido has called for a nationwide march on Caracas to crank up the pressure on Maduro as the country entered its fourth day largely without power. The massive blackout in the oil-rich but economically troubled South American nation has intensified the political standoff between Guaido, who is recognized as Venezuela's leader by more than 50 countries, and Maduro, who is clinging to power. No national data was available about the impact of the power outage, but an NGO said at least 15 patients with advanced kidney disease died after they stopped receiving dialysis treatments in darkened hospitals. In Washington, National Secretary Advisor John Bolton suggested members of the Venezuelan military were considering their support for Maduro. He said one reason the security forces have refrained from arresting Guaido, and as I quote, "Maduro fears if he give that order, it would not be obeyed." Asked if he was certain Maduro was on his way out, Bolton said he is not certain of anything, but thinks Guaido has the momentum. The military's high command has repeatedly declared absolute loyalty to Maduro, but desertions of enlisted soldiers and lower-ranking officers have been on the rise. As night fell Saturday, much of the country was still without power. Businesses remained shut, hospitals struggled to operate, and public transport barely functioned. The 35-year-old Guaido, the head of Venezuela's National Assembly, earlier told thousands of supporters that he would soon embark on a nationwide listening tour before leading a march on the capital. Guaido, who proclaimed himself president of the country of 30 million people in January and says Maduro's May re-election was illegitimate, has demanded new polls. He threatened to call for an outside military intervention when the time comes, pointing to the Constitution, which authorizes the use of a Venezuelan military mission abroad or foreigners inside the country. Thousands of people rallied against Russia's increasingly restrictive internet policy Sunday, which some say will eventually lead to total censorship and isolate the country from the world. The mass rally in Moscow and smaller events in other cities across the country was called after the Russian lower house of parliament backed a bill to stop Russian internet traffic from being routed on foreign servers in a bid to boost cyber security.
Что очень хорошо подходит к сегодняшнему дню, потому что нам, правда, все нельзя, кроме как терпеть.
Рунета, и мы здесь потому, что анонимность у нас в России уходит, что власти принимают законы, которые могут позволить сажать людей как бы в тюрьму вообще без повода, блокировать ресурсы, блокировать доступ к информации. И это важно.
The move was labeled by critics as the latest attempt to control online content under President Vladimir Putin, with some fearing the country is on track to completely isolate its network like in North Korea. Activists counting people said more than 15,000 people have turned up to listen to internet and media rights activists as well as music performers who have complained of government pressure in recent months. Police detained several people without explanation. An AFP correspondent saw a man being dragged away by arms and legs near the entrance to the rally. The popular Telegram messaging app, which Russian authorities have been unsuccessfully trying to block for many months, called on its users to attend the rally last week. A message in Russian on its official account said that the bill on internet centralization aims to cut off Russia from the rest of the world, after which they can block foreign social networks and messengers. It said the goal of the bill is total censorship. The bill has not yet been voted on in key second reading. It says a petition against the bill launched by the Roskomsvoboda Internet Freedoms Group calls on Russians to appeal to lawmakers to strike the bill down. Otherwise, soon we will be living in anti-utopias of Orwell. Coming up, a UN envoy sees prospects for the South Sudan peace deal. Dozens have been injured as a turbulence hits a Turkish Airlines flight to New York. A 2020 hopeful Elizabeth Warren unveils her big tech breakup plan. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. We'll be right back.
I am Leo Aquino, EBC correspondent from Vancouver, Canada, and I am standing here in front of the Olympic Cauldron located in the downtown Vancouver. Did you know that the 2010 Winter Olympic was hosted in Vancouver? Make sure to tune in to Digitalness every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. I am Leo Aquino, and I am 1 for 25.
Hi everyone! Word Hope will be having all new episodes very soon. We can't wait for all of you to join us again as we learn many things. We will have loads of fun learning new words and values as well. So, stay tuned to Net25 Kids every Saturday and Sunday, 8:30 to 9 a.m. only on Net25.
News, Linggo, alas 4 hanggang alas 5 ng hapon.
Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. United Nations Special Representative for South Sudan, David Shearer, tells the Security Council the country's peace agreement is holding, adding that the challenge now is to maintain the momentum of the peace process. The agreement signed in September provides for a power-sharing government that will prepare elections meant to turn the page on 5 years of war in South Sudan, one of the world's worst conflicts. Critics of the deal say it is largely a repeat of a previous 2015 agreement that fell apart when heavy fighting broke out in Juba between President Salva Kiir's forces and fighters loyal to Riek Machar.
There are some who believe that a return to violence is inevitable. We don't concur. This agreement has broader buy-in from parties than the 2015 agreement. It is widely embraced by the population. We too have concerns about the peace process, but there is yet to be a perfect process. For our part, the UN has and will continue to focus attention and resources on making it work. A key reason why people tell us they are reluctant to return home, of course, is security. Sexual violence continues to cause immense harm to women and girls across the country, most recently in Northern Unity, where the concentration of forces from all sides of the conflict has led to horrific incidents. The violence must end, and the perpetrators must be held to account.
Shearer said the parties were well behind in implementing the agreement and that key issues had been deferred, such as forming a unified army to be deployed in Juba and major towns, and providing security for opposition leaders returning from exile. A first test of the deal will come in May, when a transitional government led by Kiir and 5 vice presidents, including Machar, currently in exile in Khartoum, is to take over. To bolster the peace deal, the UN envoy appealed for financial support through contributions to a newly established trust fund that will help provide resources. But the United States, South Sudan's biggest financial backer, made clear that the Juba government must pour some of its own revenues from oil production into support for peace. U.S. Acting Ambassador Jonathan Cohen said, and I quote, "Absent such transparency, South Sudan's leaders cannot expect the international community to provide substantial financial support to implement the peace agreement." South Sudan descended into war in December 2013 when Kiir accused Machar, his former deputy, of plotting a coup. Under the previous deal, Machar returned from exile with a group of bodyguards in July 2016, sparking a major battle in Juba that forced the rebel leader to flee the country, chased by tanks and helicopter gunships. The war has killed tens of thousands of people, uprooted over 1/3 of South Sudan's 12 million people, and has seen horrific levels of sexual violence along with brutal attacks on civilians. The council was meeting ahead of a vote expected next week on renewing the mandate of the 16,000-strong UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan, known as UNMISS.
You all know that peace implementation is moving at a very slow pace due to inadequate funding. Nevertheless, while we hope some in the international community will assist in the implementation, the government of the Republic of South Sudan will carry on with the implementation process using whatever means and resources available to it.
Officials said a Turkish Airlines passenger jet traveling from Istanbul to New York hit severe turbulence Saturday as it approached its destination, with 30 people suffering injuries before it landed safely. The injured were taken from New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport to local hospitals, mainly for treatment of bumps, cuts, and bruises. One flight attendant suffered a broken leg, according to Steve Coleman, a spokesman for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which operates the area's airports, bus terminals, and bridges and tunnels. Coleman said the Boeing 777, with 326 passengers and 21 crew on board, was over the Atlantic Ocean about 45 minutes from landing when it struck the turbulence. Airport operations were not disrupted as a result of the incident. Turkish Airlines did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Earlier in the day, a plane operated by Canada's Air Transat made an emergency landing at another New York area airport in Newark, New Jersey, after smoke was detected in the cargo hold. The Boeing 737-800, which had 189 passengers on board, was traveling from Montreal to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Democratic presidential hopeful Elizabeth Warren unveiled a proposal Friday to break up big tech, arguing that firms such as Amazon, Google, and Facebook hold too much power in society. Warren said that as president, she would press for legislation to designate big online companies with revenues of at least $25 billion as platform utilities, barred from owning any participants on that platform.
Because that opportunity to do what you do best, to come up with a great idea, to work your heart out to make it happen, to be able to compete on a level playing field, is taken away by these platform giants. So my view is break those things apart and we will have a much more competitive, robust market in America. That's how capitalism should work. We have to think about competitive markets. That's what my announcement yesterday, my proposal is now, about protecting competitive markets by breaking these giants up.
The Massachusetts senator seeking her party's nomination for 2020 said she would also appoint antitrust enforcers committed to reversing illegal and anti-competitive tech mergers, including acquisitions in recent years by Amazon, Facebook, and Google. The proposal comes amid a growing tech clash movement in the United States against the firms which have grown to become the world's most valuable in a series of antitrust investigations in Europe. Critics accuse the firms of mishandling private user data and of abusing their dominance of certain sectors such as online retail and internet search. When we come back, an Egyptian zoo offers animals hot drinks during wintry weather, and Cameroonian villagers assess the damage done by stampeding elephants. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will be right back.
Know the latest news and information here and abroad. In Aguila, Balita, track the latest happenings in the provinces in Aguila, Provincia. Be aware of important events in Asia, in ASEAN in focus, and be updated in the biggest news around the world in Eagle News International. Tune into Mata ng Aguila and get the day's headlines and news that are sharp, accurate, and objective. Only here at Net 25.
I am here right now at Spanish Banks, one of Vancouver's popular beaches, where you get a great view of the Vancouver skyline and the North Shore Mountains. Make sure you tune into Digital Nest every Tuesday and Thursday. I am Luquino, your EBC Canada correspondent, and I am 1 with 25.
Hello Digital Nesters, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to watch our future features.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
News, Washington, D.C., I'm Ace Ramirez. The Giza Zoo in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, offers animals milk tea and hot drinks with honey to help them cope during the cold, wintry weather.
احنا بنقدم مشروبات ساخنة في الشتاء على اساس ان هي ترفع الطاقة بتاع الحيوانات وما نحسسهمش بالاسر اللي هم فيه، لان طبعا الشمبانزي بيحب الشاي لان الجينات بتاعته الوراثية 94% من الجينات الوراثية بتاع الانسان، فطبعا كذلك الامر هو بيشرب شاي بحليب بنعمل له بليلة.
احنا في الايام الساعة دي او ايام الثلج اللي احنا فيها دي بنعمل شاي بعسل، بنعمل بليلة بتدفيهم، بيبقى حاجه دافيه للدفء الشمبانزي.
اي فايق، انما لو في مثلا هو بينام في حاجه ساعه وحاسس ان هو سعان هتلاقي عنده برد وفي عنده رشح وتعبان وممكن يتعب منك في اي لحظه. فدي طبعا لازم ان احنا بنطبق ليه الطبيعه بتاعته اللي بيعيش فيها بره، الاكل بتاعه ازاي بانتظام، طبعا الحمام لازم تعمله بسلوك كويس جدا، تنظف المكان بتاعه، كل حاجه دي بتنطبق عليه لما بتعملها كويس يعني بطريقه كويسه الحيوان بيتعايش معاك فتره طويله.
بالتأكيد تواجد عدد حيوانات محبوس بيخلي حجم مساحته صغيرة، فده بيغير سلوكته، بيخليه أكتر نرفزة، أكتر عصبية، بيقلل لي كمان في الإكسار أو التكاثر بتاعهم. مكان ضيق محبوسين فيه، هو واخد في الغابة إن هو بيعيش في الطبيعة، حتى لو هو كان مولود عندي في الأسر، بس هو السلوك بتاعه البيهيفير بتاعه إن هو يبقى عايش في حرية وأكتر. وده احنا عندنا 5600 من كل الانواع، 5640 نوع من الطيور والزواحف والحيوانات الثدييات، يعني سواء دي او ديت.
Residents of Buga, a village in the north of Cameroon, are struggling to deal with the issue of hungry elephants marauding through their crops. This is not the first time that pachyderms have left the reserve to feed in the village's millet and sorghum plantations. But this time, the elephants also destroyed several local huts.
Et puis, ils ont cassé l'autre côté du mur, ils sont sortis. Et puis, ils ont donc réussi à sortir. Et ils sont passés dans quelques concessions là. Et puis, dès qu'ils ont réussi à trouver la brousse, ils ont fui.
Assez.
That is today's Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Join us again tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at Eaglenews.PH and EagleNewsLive.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I'm Ace Ramirez. I'm 1 with 25.
Back for its 5th year, the All-Star Chef Classic returns to Los Angeles, California for a 4-day culinary experience showcasing some of the most renowned and award-winning chefs from around the globe. The combination of fresh herbs and diverse spices in dishes like lamb kofta and Moroccan fried chicken really allow your palate to take a trip to the Middle East. Considered one of the hottest food trends, Middle Eastern cuisine is celebrated at the Middle East Feast, which features chef talent from around the country alongside some of LA's best chefs, dishing up their take on this delicious and comforting cuisine.
Thank you for joining us at the All-Star Chef Classic in Los Angeles, California. I'm Jaina Polisiki, and I'm 1 with 25.
Hello digital investors, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to watch our future features.